The Smithsonian Faculty Fellowship Program represents a rewarding academic professional development opportunity for faculty at Montgomery College. The fellowships are a product of a unique collaboration between Montgomery College and the Smithsonian Center for Learning and Digital Access. It's the first of its kind between the Smithsonian Institution and a community college.
Rachel Saidi is an associate professor in the Math and Statistics Department on the Rockville campus. She has been at MC for 15 years. She recently created a biostatistic course for the college, which she will teach this coming semester. And for more than 7 years, she has worked with the college's Sonia Kovalevsky's program to inspire middle school girls with STEM activities. In the early 1990s, she served in the Peace Corps in Tanzania, East Africa, and this experience has driven much of her need to address social justice issues throughout her life.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Well, first of all, I wanted to tell you how grateful I was to have the opportunity to do this project. It was a rare experience for me, especially in the STEM discipline, to work with non-STEM colleagues, and I had a rare opportunity to collaborate in ways that I really had not expected. So that was, for me, the most professionally gratifying part of this. So thank you to Smithsonian and in Montgomery College to give me this opportunity. So my background is that out of college, I went into the Peace Corps. So when the topic of social justice popped up, I thought that this compelled me to try to apply and get into this project. So over the summer of 2017, I attended a statistics conference, and at the workshop that it was on data visualization. It was kind of the impetus for how I created my project. The workshop leader said, all you have to do is put your topic that you're interested in and type in data visualization after it, and data visualizations come up. And it was kind of the beginning of this incessant search for me over the entire summer, and I developed a whole list of all of these different places where I could take my students that were all social justice related. And at the same time, I found this quote by Dr. Lester. He is at the Office of Multi-Ethnic Student Education at College Park. And it was how I decided I'd start my semester with my students in Math 117. So Math 117 is an introductory statistics course. It's for students of all sorts of disciplines. It's required. It's also not necessarily required just because it's statistics, but also because it is their one and only math credit, college credit that they need to take for the college. So we have a wide range of students in terms of abilities, levels, interests, and so I wanted to immediately engage them. So I thought I'd start off on day one showing them this quote: "We must never be complacent in the face of injustice and oppression. It's through determination and a collective effort of proactive engagement for change that we will eliminate institutional barriers that perpetuate privilege, status, advantage, and opportunity for some." And so I started that way because I wanted them to understand that we were going to talk about social justice within the realm of statistics. This was the ever-evolving document that I started creating, and if you'll notice, on the left column there's all sorts of topics. They go on for several pages of social justice topics. Then there was the visualization that I would take my students to. Every class I started with a visualization, and I often incorporated some of on the right-hand column you'll see the Smithsonian Image Lab exhibitions. So I also wanted my students to understand that when they first start, they don't know anything about how statistics can be manipulated and sway people enough. So we start with the Flint, Michigan incident. And you can see here very easily, part of my presentation is also to help you see some things, to play with some statistics. So what they did is they justified non-action on the water level, lead in the water levels, by taking out two of the highest levels, and then they said that the levels of lead were all okay. So we start by that. And then I talk about visualization. So all of these visualizations are a build-up to our heading off to the museums. What do you notice? What do you wonder? What's going on in this graph? Very open-ended questions. So the first thing I wanted to engage you all with is I'd like you to just see one visualization that I bring them into. All the way on the left. There you go. And I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to let you watch.
Are you going to tell us what we're watching?
It's adult obesity rates by states, and she's going from 2006 to 2016.
So, adult obesity rates. You don't need much statistics to have watched the colors changed in the states from the obesity rates that were in, the starting rate was in 1990, and now it's in, the last was 2016. Thank you, so we can go back to the presentation. So I often would introduce, as I said, some Smithsonian Learning Lab images. So that, the last one you saw of the obesity rates tied into the opioid epidemic. And so this one we're not going to click on, but what they noticed, they made a connection because they found that the highest drug overdose death rates in the US also coincided with West Virginia, which also had some of the highest obesity rates. So they're starting to now look at color, shape, size that are explaining all these things. And I've done very little to teach them this. This is the only other one I want to engage with. I just think it's topical at this moment, very current. So we're going to do this. And be patient, if you don't mind, for a second with it. That was 2013. Thank you, Tiffany. So obviously they're current events, and these are powerful. They tell their own story, and so that led us to, now we can start thinking about how we're going to engage with some of the other visualizations, and now we can actually get into some statistics. This one I'm not going to show you, but this one actually brings out the most reaction because it's gender inequality for pay. And what this says, this was done by the Wall Street Journal, and by the way, I only pick out visualizations from reputable organizations. So this one says that out of 446 major US occupations, 439 of them are where the average male makes more than the average female. And so they get very engaged in this one. This one I just bring in because because statistics is the tie-in and the tool for so many of the other fields and disciplines. So this is, Hans Rosling creates all sorts of public health policy. So I show them this one. I would love to show you so many more, but I was only allotted 15 minutes, so I'm gonna stop now. So we can get into segregation. Here are some more Smithsonian Lab images. And this is the New York Times did some census data, and you can see clearly through color where there is segregation. It's by demographics. So finally, we're preparing to head to the National Museum of American History. And I was trying to figure out how I was going to make a connection and a real project. And it was at that time that gerrymandering was in the news, which it has a roller coaster, but it was right there, prevalent. And so we started looking at gerrymandering. And I started explaining to them about mathematical statistical calculations of compactness. And so we went to the Democracy Now! Exhibit on the website, and so I asked them to look through the Learning Lab and find one object that they hoped to see when they went there. So these are some of the images that they found. This is their work that they sent in to me. And then this was not asked for, but students started finding newspaper clippings for me. There's John McCain's tweet, and this was this one right here was I'm trying to remember. I think that was the Washington Post. This is from Time magazine, and they're bringing them into me, and other colleagues started bringing these into me, so it became a big fun thing that my project was evolving into not just my own project with my own students, but it was going out there. So we looked at Washington Post also made a great little clip on gerrymandering, what it is, but you can see that the shape is a clear indication that if it's funny, then it might be gerrymandered. But we can also get into the mathematical calculations of it, and they found that Maryland is one of the more gerrymandered states. And this is another data visualization called a heat map. This is the last visualization I'm going to give you on gerrymandering, and I think it's powerful because if you look at the top, it's by date. I believe it's 1946. You certainly can't see that, but there is literal gray area. And as you go down at the bottom, that's the most current date. I think it's 2015. The gray area has disappeared. And so gerrymandering is a social justice issue as it leads to the rise in partisanship and marginalization of constituents. So all of this is building up so that they will feel engaged when they get to the Smithsonian Museum. We studied the compactness scores, and interestingly, a lot of them did not know what district they lived in, so they had to find that out in one of their projects. And many of them found they were in District 3, which has the praying mantis shape. It is highly gerrymandered on a scale of 0 to 100, 96.79. On one of the scales, there are many compactness scores. So they went and they tried to find which district they lived in because it was kind of important. I wanted them to know if they felt like they were in a gerrymandered district. Then we went to the Democracy Now! Exhibition. They did a number of things. They interacted with a number of the exhibits. They visited the Greensboro lunch counter presentation. Then we looked at an article called Redrawing the Map on Redistricting, and I wanted them to think about their particular district and see if they could find its compactness score and do a statistical analysis on whether their district was gerrymandered. I was most delighted because I'll be honest, as a math person, I was not quite sure how it would go over for students to go to the American History Museum. And when I went there, they thrilled me. They engaged with some of the exhibits. I saw some students standing for 10 minutes just reading and reading and staring and reading and taking pictures, and it was really exciting. I will read to you D'Angelo's. I think civil rights is an important social justice issue. Through the civil rights movement, though the civil rights movement happened over 60 to 80 years ago, it is still very important. We as a nation are starting to repeat history in a sense that there are still minorities who are not treated as equals in this nation. And we've begun to fight back and protest more in this time period to make issues known. Democracy is supposed to emphasize freedom and equality, and yet our society and people within our society still disagree. And there are other quotes and some really interesting perceptions, especially from some of the students who aren't Americans. So thank you, and if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.